This is the $99 Fitbit Air. I've been wearing it for the past 2 weeks, and today I'm going to finally share all the data, heart rate metrics, GPS, sleep recovery scores, and to find out, is this thing actually accurate and is it worth your money? Because $99 is insane, especially when you compare it against the Whoop 5.0 or MG. I wore it alongside the Apple Watch, Whoop, the Oura Ring, an 8 Sleep Pod, a Sleep EEG headband for my brainwaves, and I even wore a Garmin chest heart rate strap while doing my outdoor runs, cycles, and other workouts. So go through heart rate, GPS distance, which actually uses your phone, not built-in GPS, and then sleep accuracy recovery scores. Plus my overall thoughts on the AI coach, the user experience. There is a link down in the description if you do plan to buy that or the Whoop or any other device. Let's get into it. Now let's look at the raw heart rate data for an Apple Watch Ultra 3, a Garmin Forerunner 970 with the chest heart rate strap HRM 600, and then the Fitbit Air, which I uploaded 2 files because I was curious if they'd be different depending on the time that I uploaded them to, which they were exactly the same. You can see the average heart rate was 156 for the Fitbit, 156 for the Apple Watch, and then the chest heart rate strap was 158. Just looking at the graphs right now, they seem pretty on par with each other. It looks like there are moments where the chest heart rate strap does differ from the other two. Even in this segment here, you can see it drops quicker. Could have just been a sensor issue right here. Looks like we've got some heart rate data that's been missed. Only the Fitbit Air seemed to have information. I might have paused my run right here. Purple is the chest heart rate strap. Honestly, the biggest conclusion is that they're all really good. If we scroll down, you can see the bias, 1.8 heartbeats per minute, or 0.1, which is insane. Another run I did here, and this time I also wore the Phoenix 8 in addition to the Apple Watch Ultra 3, the Fitbit Air, and the Garmin Forerunner 970 with the chest heart rate strap, the HRM 600. Now this is where we had more differentiation in the heart rate data, as right here, I think this is the green. The chest heart rate strap kept recording, but all the other ones paused. I think I paused for a bit here. That might mess up the averages, keep that in mind. But if we look at the very beginning, there's something wrong with the Fitbit. I don't know what happened here with the heart rate data. It might have been moving around a lot. It wasn't on tight enough, but it seemed to stabilize later on. Over here, we do have some out of range, but overall it seemed pretty strong. It's just that beginning half that I wasn't doing so well. Yeah, the Fitbit here seems to be jumping around. Not sure why that was, but generally speaking, it was close enough. If we look at the divergence, it seems to be pretty strong when you're comparing it to the HRM 600 right here. Shows a plus 1.2 beats per minute, which is excellent. And then a third one where I just wore the Fitbit in my Apple Watch, about a 6 beats per minute difference. I did pause here, so that might have caused some issues. It looks like we only got Fitbit data here, not Apple Watch data. But overall, they seem to be head and head. Like you can't see that there's another line. Like maybe there's a small segment right here where they do differ. But overall, the Fitbit Air and the Apple Watch Ultra 3 seem to be very, very close. Since stopping and starting can easily happen on my watch, rather than I have to pause the thing on my phone, Fitbit data might be slightly different here. Okay, but what about other kinds of workouts, like a swim? So here I wore a Form swim goggles, the Fitbit Air, and the Apple Watch Ultra 3. It looks like the Fitbit Air seemed to be close to the Form swim goggles, which I would argue is more accurate. The Apple Watch struggled a bit. I think swimming is one where the heart rate is more challenging because the watch is moving with the water, especially with a large Apple Watch. Like that water is going to push the watch and move it around, and the water going underneath the watch is going to impact the heart rate data. And that's where you have a win. With a smaller device, it's less likely to move around. I've tried swimming with the Whoop, and you cannot swim with this flexible band. It will flip, it will move. This band is not flexible, so it's just better for swimming and any fast action activities where you do not want this to move around. You can see the Apple Watch did the poorest for the swimming, but the Fitbit Air and the Form goggles were almost head on. What about bike or cycling? For some reason, the Fitbit data did not export heart rate, so I don't know. And lastly, what about a quick row? So the erg data in Concept 2 should be my Apple Watch Ultra 3 heart rate, and then the Fitbit Air is its own heart rate. This seems to be jumping around a lot. When you're rowing, you're moving your arms back and forth, and that might have caused the heart rate data to be all over. The average heart rate seemed to be close, but there are just moments in this graph where it just jumps up and down. If you were to compare it to the Apple Watch Ultra 3, there's about a 2.6 BPM difference, which is good. Not great. Now I have 2 runs that I ran with a chest heart rate strap. You can see the heart rate bias. It seems like the Fitbit was relatively close. The Apple Watch tended to do better. For some reason, the Phoenix maybe was just too big, was a bit off. But you know, it's pretty close enough. Full swim, you can see here, the Apple Watch just did not do as well. The Fitbit much better. And these are the large trends over time. Now, the heart rate is the foundational metric for everything else that's built on it. Recovery, training load, calories, AI coaching. They all depend on that. So that's why this is probably the most important metric. The algorithm needs to be strong and the sensor needs to be strong. And as a user, you need to properly be wearing the device. I would love to see a Fitbit bicep band because you're able to get more accurate data. because it's moving around less often and there's just less interference when it's up here rather than on your wrist, and you're less likely as a user to mess things up. Overall, it seems like the heart rate data is pretty good. Now, what about GPS? Well, in this device, there is not a GPS, global positioning system, like you might have in your other smartwatches. That's where it uses your phone's assisted GPS. Just like you were to start a workout on your Strava, Runna app, Nike training app, you can start workouts on your phone. The newest iPhones do have multi-band GPS, so they should be better in cities. Obviously, depending on where you put the phone on your body, that's going to impact the accuracy. But let's just look at the data anyways. Because I'm curious, can I just wear the Fitbit and not bring any smartwatch to track my distance workouts? So that's where your phone GPS just is not perfect. I would just keep that in mind. It's good enough. You're a casual runner. Good, you can track, get some data. But if you're training for something very specific, most likely you do not want to use your phone's GPS. You will want a training watch that has multi-band GPS, especially in New York City. I'm in New York. Obviously, I think the phone GPS will be good enough in open areas. One, I found stopping the workout on my phone can be kind of tough when your hands get all sweaty, you're operating your phone. Whereas with a watch, you do have hardware buttons. And two, the GPS is just gonna get a better signal when it's on your wrist facing up. And if you have it versus your phone, that could be like in your pocket, in a bag, somewhere just hidden. So the conclusion is, if you're training for a marathon, some kind of race where you need outdoor GPS absolutely for your specific workouts, get a smartwatch, train those workouts, have that automatically input into Apple Health and then into Google Health. If you're not and you're just kind of casually working out, you just want some of that data to be tracked, imported, and saved, use your phone GPS. Like my parents would love this. They can track their walks, their runs, their bikes, and they have the data, but like it doesn't really matter that they did half a kilometer more or not on that workout. It's not gonna change their life. Okay, now comes the sleep accuracy. I'm really curious because there's recovery scores, readiness scores. I was looking at it and I was a bit shocked and also not surprised because I've been testing and wearing all these devices for a very long time and they're never going to be the same. I will tell you that right now. Now here is one example. This is 1 night of deep sleep. I use the Somni headband, which is an EEG. It goes across my head. It tracked about 1.5 hours of deep sleep. Now we have a whole bunch of other devices here. How much deep sleep did each of them get? Look how varied this is. 8 Sleep, Fitbit Air, Oura Ring, Whoop, Apple Watch. We had all the way from 28 minutes up to 3 hours and 17 minutes. That's 169 minutes spread across all these devices that I wore on my own body in 1 night. Now let's look at total sleep duration. This time we've included the Somni EEG headband. I would argue this is the most accurate because it's measuring my brain waves. And for the most part, they all seem to be pretty close. The Oura tends to be under, and then the Whoop tends to be way above. I did watch a movie maybe 2 or 3 nights in bed. And I think the Whoop just overcalculated my sleep because I was watching a movie. For example, this 1 night here, May 16th, the Somni had 5.92 and the Apple Watch 5.47, but everyone else was around 10, 11 hours. So what could have happened there? This is why it's important that these are consumer devices and to take all the data with a grain of salt. What about overall deep sleep over the 11 days? The Whoop just loves to have a higher number. The Apple Watch seemed to be the closest to the EEG headband. That doesn't mean there's nights where the Apple Watch was entirely different from all the other devices, like here. 48 minutes versus 96 minutes on the EEG. Here the Whoop said 197, whereas the Apple Watch said 28, but the EEG said 90 minutes, and the Fitbit was 124. That's where my conclusion sits. For sleep staging data, I look at it, but I don't make large decisions based on it. And that will almost always be true with all these wearables for the time being. Now what was interesting is the 8 Sleep tended to be the closest for sleep stages to my EEG headband, and the Fitbit Air was pretty close up there, on par sometimes with the Oura and Apple Watch, but sometimes beating them. Now for $99, that is amazing. And the sleep tracking story on 1 night, on 1 person is not the entire story. It could be different depending on how you wear it, where you wear it, how tight it is, how loose it is, how you wear all these other devices. So just keep that in mind. This is not science. This is for educational purposes only and my test. HRV, this is a big one that people care about. How does the HRV compare night over night? Because this, some people argue, could be how well you are recovered. Now somehow, I'm still using AI. It's my first time. The Fitbit HRV didn't make it in. I wasn't able to export the data in time. So you can see how all over the place some of them can be. They're relatively close to trends, but for the most part, there are massive differences. Okay, these are all complex numbers. What about something simple like step counting? Well, even then, they were relatively similar, but also different. I'm gonna discount the Oura Ring because I take it off sometimes, especially when I eat, I leave it. I only wear it, sometimes next to my bed. But the Apple Watch and the Fitbit were very, very close. The Whoop was slightly under. I would argue step count, pretty strong because I'm wearing the Fitbit, the Apple Watch, and the Whoop all day long. Seems like the Fitbit and Apple Watch are very close to each other, so I would argue they're both very good at step counting. And for $99 on the Fitbit Air versus $800 on the Apple Watch, this is a great step counter. Whoop, what are you doing? You might be wondering, how did the sleep scores, the readiness scores, impact across the devices? So here you can see on the Fitbit Air, I had a 90 readiness score. On the Whoop, also a 90% in the same night. But then the Aura gave me a 48. So that shows you that there can be variance, and I've not only seen this on this one night, but many nights across multiple devices. 11 nights of the Aura, Whoop, Fitbit, 8 Sleep, and see how they compare. As you can see, it feels a bit all over the place. We've got as low as 55 and as high as 80. One night, the Aura said 48 and the Whoop said 90. The small dotted line here is the Fitbit, and you can see it shoots up really high, it shoots low. On this day, the Fitbit seems to be far off from everyone else in the pack. On this day, it's relatively close. This is kind of why I say I don't look at recovery readiness scores, just because like all these devices are drastically different over a 14-day period. And I don't change how I live my life based on information. I typically look at resting heart rate and HRV mostly. Look, here's another night. We got a 60 on the Aura Ring, a 57 on the Fitbit, and then a 52 on the Whoop 5.0 MG. Even a 59 on the Somni EEG headband. So those nights, they were relatively similar-ish. One last example. This night, I just wasn't feeling well. I couldn't breathe for some reason because my asthma was going off. I had a +1 temperature, 17.9 respiratory rate. But then Whoop said I was a 93%. I was looking good, feeling good, even though I had an elevated respiratory rate on my Apple Watch said I had one outlier, which is the 18.2 respiratory rate. And then the Fitbit said I had a 95, high readiness. Everything was good. So now it's like I wear all these devices, I get slightly different readiness and insights. Which one do I believe? The Aura said, hey, you need to chill. Whoop was like, green, maximum green, go, go, go. Apple Watch was, wait a minute, let's look at that data. And even the Fitbit was like, go, go, go. So some days, the Fitbit, and the other days, the Aura Ring and Fitbit were next to each other. So when it comes to readiness, recovery, whatever those sleep scores things are, take it all with a grain of salt. Do not let it impact how your day feels. Because if you get a low score, it might make you want to have a worse day. And if you get a high score, you might just placebo effect and be like, I'm gonna have a great day. So just placebo effect and have a great day every day. Now, what about the AI coach? What are my thoughts here? This, I think, is the most interesting part. Whoop has an AI coach, and it can give you insights, recommendations. They've been starting to do more and more of that. I think now that this is released, it's gonna push them to do a better job. But having Gemini behind the scenes to power this, it's $9.99 per month if you wanna sign up for that plan, is really freaking cool. Because it's not just a conversation, but there's so much more that you can do. I have a goal to run a sub 3-hour marathon, and it kind of asked me, hey, what's your long-term goal? I gave it my goal. We had a plan. I said, hey, propose a plan for me. I don't really want to do the plan. Tell me what I need to do to achieve that. And then start to set goals in terms of how many miles I need to run, the specific cardio load, which is a Fitbit metric, and how many sessions I should be running, targeting what kind of pace. That's step one. Then it comes to food. It can track my food. I can take photos of it, send in the food. Sadly, it doesn't use the timestamp of the food. It logs it when I upload the photo. So you can talk to it and tell it to change things, and it automatically will. Then after each day, it'll give you insights on your sleep from the night before, as well as insights on your workout. And it modifies all the coaching based on how you might be feeling. So it might be like, hey, the temperature's really hot outside. Like when I had to work out in a really, really hot day, I can even tap these pre-prompts. It says heat was tough. It says, hey, no joke, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's 30 degrees Celsius on a 9-mile effort. It knows when you don't sleep well and you're not recovered well and why you might feel fatigued during your run. And lastly, it will do automatic activity detection as you wear the device. And I can even screenshot workouts from my other apps and upload it straight to the Google Health app, and it will incorporate those mileage, the distance, the workout that I actually did into that workout, which is insane. Like it's just updating it as I chat. It's like, good job. Love it. There's one thing to keep in mind. It might think like at the beginning, it really thought I was dancing a lot of the times. So you have to teach it. This little magic wand with the star means it's automatically logged. And then I had to change it to running. So just keep that in mind that it's not perfect and you need to train it a little bit so it gets better at identifying your workouts. But I love that it gives me insights after my workout. It'll tell me, hey, you have a mechanical shift here, a late run heart rate drift, the recovery response. Tell me, hey, you're getting stronger, you're improving. And for me, getting those insights is motivating. And I love that when I don't sleep well or if I can tell it that I'm sick or injured, it will modify the workouts and recommendations based on that information. So it's not just gonna give you recommendations, it's gonna also talk with you to understand what's important to you, what's going on right now that it doesn't know inside the app, which it already knows a lot of information. These are all the auto detection workouts that it can figure out, and it learns your habits over time. Okay, now what does the Fitbit Air not do? It is a screenless device, so there's no time, there's no buttons, you can double tap it, there's a vibration motor, so it has a smart alarm to wake you up in the morning. There's no NFC payments like on a Garmin watch or Apple Watch. There's no fall detection, no custom heart rate zones right now, no ability to connect an external heart rate strap to the Fitbit Air if you wanted to, no biological age metric, which I know people love on the Whoop and Bevel and all these other apps, and no Apple Health write back. So it's not writing to Apple Health, not yet. Google says it's coming soon. I think considering they're absorbing all this information, I'd love to see them also write the information too. What are some things I don't like about it? You will run into some issues where, some syncing might not work properly, technical issues, connections, restart the app, turn Bluetooth on and off. The auto detection at the beginning might give you some weird stuff. It kept saying I was running every day, but I was just walking to work. Kept saying all my runs were dances, but I was just doing leg swings. And then the initial setup of the app did take me a little while with having to software update this. So with any technology device, I know people are going to comment on Reddit and be like, I hate this thing. This was frustrating. It's technology. Please be patient. If you care about it and you want to get the value of it over time, 1, be patient with the technology you get set up. And 2, be patient with inputting the information and chatting with the AI, because you're not going to see the value overnight. This is something that you might take 2 weeks to learn, absorb, and understand how it works for you specifically. But if you're not ready to wait, then it's not for you to buy yet. Now, is this thing better than the Whoop? For $99 plus a $99 per year subscription versus the Whoop being $239 every single year, the price can add up. The Fitbit after 3 years will be $396 versus the Whoop will be $717. That's considering you have Fitbit Premium or a Google Health Premium, which I would argue you kind of would want to get all the AI stuff. Now, we do get 14 days of battery life on the Whoop versus only 7 days on the Fitbit, but it is half the size. It's more comfortable. I noticed that it does get wet, this band specifically, but it dries relatively quickly. Having less surface area touching my skin, I prefer that a lot more. Like, I'm more enjoying wearing this than the Whoop strap. It's easier to dry because there's just less material. And because it's smaller, it's going to move less, and the heart rate should be more accurate. And if you didn't know, Fitbit was and is still the #1 wearable, I think, in the world. Fact check me on that. So knowing that there are a ton of people who care about their health and wellness and want to upgrade their old Fitbits, this is probably the device they're going to select. Yes, there's the athletes, the high performers who want the Whoop, who are willing to pay the price. But for the everyday, the general population, the Fitbit for $99, I think, is the way to go. Maybe you're like, I still need a watch. You can still wear your Apple Watch, your Pixel Watch, or a standard classic watch with this on the other wrist. You can only wear this at night if you really want to. Use it as a sleep tracker, and then use a Garmin or an Apple Watch or an Amazfit as your daily fitness tracker. That's kind of what I do with the Oura Ring. The Oura Ring I usually wear sometimes during the day, but I will typically just put it next to my nightstand and I put it on when I sleep, and that's about it. I don't wear it during my workouts, so there's just no reason to. It's a sleep tracker. So you could argue this is a $99 sleep tracker. You don't need the other fitness stuff. You have your watch for that, which will write all the information to Google Health. Now, this is where this might not be for you. Maybe you are training for a marathon, a race, or a biking race. I don't know what those are called, but I kind of want to do one day. Or triathlon. You need GPS data, you need distance information, and you want something accurate. That's where a smart GPS watch comes in. And I would argue that you really don't need a sleep tracker. You might want one, but it's not necessary. You could have a watch and you could wear that watch at night and get some sleep data, but the main reason is that's your fitness tracker. The Whoop in that case is probably not your fitness tracker of choice. You have a Garmin instead. You don't wear that watch 24/7. Maybe you only put it on when you work out and then you take it off when you're done. That specific person does not need a Fitbit Air, an Oura Ring, or a Whoop. But I would argue the Fitbit is competing with the Oura Ring and the Whoop. Not as much your Garmin, your Apple Watch, or even a Pixel Watch. It's complementary. My final thoughts. This is the best $99 fitness sleep tracker that money can buy. Like, that's insanely cheap. I don't love the charging process where you have to take it off and slide it on. Like, the Whoop charging is the world's best. But for 7 days, I think it's good enough. This is not going to be for your serious athletes. This is for the general population who wants to better understand their body. And I think it's going to make a dramatic impact on society if more people start wearing these things, learning about their health, drinking less alcohol, not eating before bed, sleeping in a dark room. These devices can help change those behaviors. These devices can also drive you crazy by looking at the sleep scores too much. So do not obsess, but use it as insights and intel. But if you do want to buy a sleep tracker, I've always had friends be like, the Whoop's too expensive, Apple Watch too expensive. $99, you now have the world's best $99 sleep tracker. Personally, if I were to pick a combo, once Fitbit Air writes to Apple Health, this would be my sleep tracker, and my Apple Watch would be my daily driver for paying for things and doing my fitness tracking. Because this can kind of be a little too big and sometimes I don't want to wear it at night. That's where maybe Apple, time to release a screenless wearable like a ring or a band that I can wear at night. Now, I do want to test the meal logging against MyFitnessPal, dive deeper into the medical records integrations, and even the coaching recommendations against an app like Runna. So if you want to see those, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what other questions that you have. In terms of the data, I'd say this is good enough. Well done, Google. I'm excited for what's coming next, and I'm excited for the future software updates. Subscribe, turn notifications. There's a link in the description if you plan to buy one. That helps support the channel for all the wearables. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.